Today we're talking about the spirit of love. I know a lot of people think, oh, well, that's pretty boring. No, no, not what I'm going to talk about. Not the kind of love I'm going to be talking about today. Now, I can go through the list of terminology, the Zoe love and all the different ones, the categorizations, but I don't want to do it that way. I really enjoy speaking from a standpoint of experience, not trying to qualify it by some definition of the book. Really rather have you experience from a standpoint of knowing what I'm talking about by substance. And my first experience with this type of spirit of love, and it is talking about the fruits of the spirit here, is what we're talking about. That's the topic we're on for this week, are the fruits of the spirit, which is the most powerful stuff you'll ever hear. I know the gifts of the Holy Spirit are great. I love them. I love being used in it, but and then there's ascension gifts, which really helps identify a lot of us. But the fruits of the Spirit are really the benefactors that are are so much more powerful and noticeable, and really are longer lasting than any of the other gifts. But the fruit of the Spirit is love. The fruit of the Spirit is love. That's the very first part of Galatians chapter 5 that it starts talking about these particular gifts. And this love that I'm talking about is one that is quite unique and different. I know we know the love that we have when we're teenagers, and it's puppy love is what they refer to it, and you can get your heart broke with that too. And then there's a type that puts you in a longer lasting relationship, the marriage of love and having a mate for life, and that's work in itself. You have to work at love. It's not something that happens to you. Don't get romance and love confused, because romance is the honeymoon part, but when it gets down to love, for real love, is what you do for the other person, not what they do for you, that you strive for. What can I do to make my mate happy? What can I do to show my mate I care? What little things? I mean, that is really what keeps a marriage together, is giving, not taking. Too many takers in this world, and as a result, you wind up emptying out all what little love there is there. And we want to put love in whatever we're doing. Now, there's a different kind of love when we're talking about the spirit of love. The spirit of love is something you don't experience too many times in life. Fortunately, I've experienced it twice, not in myself per se, but from people that I've met. One time was with an old prophet. He's 77 years old. We were prophesying, him and I and two others. We had 4 lanes of people gathered in 4 lines. That I think there was probably 1,600 people in that building that day, and they were all coming up to receive prophecies. And we went until we just couldn't go anymore. 5.5 hours. In 5.5 hours, I was down. I mean, it's like God just hit me with a bolt of love, and I fell right straight backwards. Nobody there to catch me. I just went down, and it didn't hurt at all. Felt no pain, no bruising, nothing like that. But while I'm laying there, it was just a very strong presence of his being. And at the same time, there was a couple there that had their 2 little boys that they were going to have a word for them. But as soon as I fell out in the spirit, they picked up their 2 boys and threw them on top of me. And I heard them say, throw him on him, the anointing's probably still on him for them to be healed. They had dental work done when they were in Mexico as missionaries, and they'd acquired themselves some nerve damage, and it was pretty serious stuff, where they had used lead in the fillings of their teeth, which you know what that'll do, mercury and lead. So, I don't know what happened to those 2 boys afterwards, what happened to them. I don't know. I'd love to have the story on that, but there was people coming from all over the part of the country and even other countries. So it was a pretty big deal. That was back in the 80s, actually. Then there was a time where I went a long period of time and went through a lot like we do in life. You lose people you love, you lose friendships, you lose your footing sometimes. And it was one of those periods of time where Debbie and I hadn't been married too long, and we were just really struggling to get the ministry back up and running after Andrea going through what she had to go through for so many years, 3 years. And it was really painful and suffering and taxing on Savannah and I. And but the point is whenever we got to the place to where we had met Debbie, things began to change. But at the same time, we were dealing with trying to get the ministry back up and running. Money was short, and we didn't know exactly what to do. But Debbie said, "Well, why don't we just take off a week? We don't have any money, but let's just use the credit card and go somewhere and get out of town for a few days." And that was not like her at all. I mean, I didn't know her all that long. I hadn't been with her for years or anything like that. But, you know, for her to say that, she is a very tight financial person. She didn't want to spend money for much of anything. But to go use a credit card to do it, that was even way off the charts. So we did. We did what she said. I could tell God was in it. So I thought, okay, we'll go do this. Crazy, but we'll do it. And when we got back, things began to really change for us. I mean, miraculously, we had 15,000 people write in and call in for prophecy just in one weekend while we were gone. And that was, you know, right when we got back is when it hit that morning of. And it was really something because it crashed our server, it crashed our website, it crashed everything that we had. It took a couple of days just to get things back up and running. And but the point is this, that we'd gone through a period of time that was really struggling, and then after going through 15,000 prophecies, trying to catch up on all that was really tough. You think, how do you do that? Well, you do 30 a day, and if you can, you do more, and you can eventually get through it. And so it was tough, but we made it through it, and it took a while, took a few months, but then you're just kind of wasted. I mean, you're burnt out. You're burnt out from, you know, just doing the labor of it, but, you know, you're also just, the hours spent doing it were tough. But then there was a time where we went through a healing process of that because every bit of the gain we had financially, we had to pay in the hospital expenses because it actually put me in a hospital for trying to keep up with the load of requests. And then we came out of that for a period of time, and it was really, really getting dry. You know, you've had those dry spells. Even with God, I have people sometimes say, hey, you know, I can't seem to find God. I'm not hearing God. I'm not feeling God. You know, everybody's had those experiences. You know, he's there, but why isn't he there for me today? And, you know, do I need to create some kind of problem that he'll come, or what needs to happen? Well, we were feeling that way. You know, we were just really down and out. And I was watching on Facebook an old friend. Well, I say a friend. First time I met him was 8 years old. And I hadn't seen him since he was in Hawaii. His dad was a preacher and had a church there. And it was the first church I ministered at in Hawaii back in the 90s, 1994, I believe it was. And he was a funny little guy. He was always hyped up, man. He was always singing from one room to the next, running around. He was really a high-spirited person. But I remember him getting a word, and the dad was really set on the fact that his oldest son was going to be a minister. And I said, no, this is the minister right here. And it kind of threw his dad back and kind of looked at me like, well, what do you think? Who are you? You know, but he said he found out later, but this young boy turned out to be a man, and he wound up going to Iraq as a Marine and did 3 tours as a Marine. Then after that, he started doing security for dignitaries coming in out of the United States to come see what's going on over in Iraq and Afghanistan. And it wound up getting out of that after there was a change in the head of state here, which we had a new president, and everything began to change. So he basically found himself on the outs, and he didn't know what to do with himself, you know, just being in action. And in military for 3 tours is enough to put you under right there. But he found he found the love of God. He wasn't really a tight knit Christian at that particular point in time. When he was in the military, but when he came out, his he had a prophecy that his mom asked me to send him, and it really put a change in him. And I saw him messing around, going places. He was over in the New York area when they had that hurricane up there, and he was trying to help out, just doing whatever he could. And so I sent him a message. I said, I don't know if you remember or not, and told him who I was. I said, if you're ever in Texas, drop by. And he came back. He said, I'll be there in 3 days. And so I thought, okay, making a special effort. Sure enough, he showed up at our doorstep 3 days later, and he wound up staying with us about 6 months, which is great because I tell you, when he walked in the door, you could feel something on him that was just awesome. It was a spirit of love. He had a love on him that was so real. And he would go through, deliverance from the PTSD and other things that he was dealing with. But God put a love in him that was so strong, so powerful. It was like a huge magnet. It would draw people to him. Him and I would go to the airports to pick up people that were coming in, and we'd be just standing there talking out in the middle of the wide open spaces that airports have. And we weren't talking very long, and all of a sudden people start gathering around, and they're just listening to us talk between us both. And we'd look around at each other and wonder, what are these people doing? And they just kept doing that on the planes when he would fly back and forth from wherever he was going. He'd come back telling all these people to get around the plane. I thought, Debbie and I thought, well, geez, there's something really, really sparking unusual here. We gotta test this. So, Gainesville had been a town that we had discovered was just not really all that friendly. You really can't find people to talk to you in a space. I know people really don't too much anymore now because of phones. Everybody's on their phone instead of talking to each other. But I said, let's go to the chiropractor and let's take Andy with us and see what happens. Nobody ever wants to talk there. Everybody's actually pretty rude. So we went there, and we weren't even talking. We were just waiting to see what happened. It wasn't 10 minutes in, and one of the ladies come over and start talking to him. Then other people started coming and talking to him. And then for long, everybody's even the doctor came out where his offices were, where he did his adjustments, his practice. And he came out there and kneeled down and prayed with him. And it was quite an interesting, eye-opening event. And so I realized he had something that I didn't have. Now, I'd had that old prophet back years prior pray for me to receive that love, because he asked me, what can I pray for you? And I said, look, I just want the impartation of that love you have that people are just drawn to. And so I thought that would be the way to get it, but it didn't really take that time. But then when I was around Andy Fraser, who's the young man that would spend time in the military and spent time with us, he's now married and has a little boy of his own and lives in Brazil. He's a minister. They have a good sized church there in Brazil, and Rio de Janeiro. I can't even say it. So I'm not familiar with Brazil that much, but I know he's doing well. He's learned the language and he speaks it well, and he even speaks a lot of it on Facebook. But my point is that there's a spirit of love that is so, I don't know how to explain it with just mere words. You have to actually be around somebody that has it. It's just so unbelievable, because they don't have to do anything. They don't have to be a comedian. They don't have to be a well speaker. They don't have to be anything. The presence of them just draws people to them. It must have been like how it just was when he'd go through those cities, and he'd go out, how many miles outside of town, not sure, but it's for peace, because people get out there and then they'd be hungry. And he'd be out there and there'd be 6,000 people, And I hear even Whitfield, one of the old ministers back in the Pilgrim days, he would come in and he would go out in the country, out just nowhere, and get up on a big boulder and start preaching. And it's recorded in history. At one point, there was 23,000 people that gathered from all over. That came from all over. They just had a revival right there at that stone. And he just kept preaching. People just kept coming. And it had to be an exciting thing. But you know, that's what we see as even Jesus would go through a town and people be coming out of the woodwork to hear what he had to say. We need more of that. I think we've seen some of it. I haven't been around that many people that carry that gift of the spirit of love, this fruit of the spirit that is so powerful. But I pray to meet more. I would love to be able to operate in that. And it requires some things of yourself. But at the same time, it's got to be a God thing. You can't just make it happen. I know that even Andy at one time ran across somebody who had accused him of hitting her car door, you know, and when he parked up in the parking garage, and you know, I don't, he knows he doesn't remember anything about doing that, but he felt so bad about the person being upset about it. Um, he he found out where they were at and gave them some money and pleaded with them, and it shocked the person. You know, just they couldn't believe it. Somebody's actually gonna, you know, do the right thing. But he was constantly doing that, constantly moving forward the direction of wanting to be kind, gentle, peaceful, showing goodness of God and the faithfulness and a well of a self control that he would never break out in any kind of argument or any kind of feud. He was always one who just settled in and dealt with it as with such a favor and a grace and favor. You know, you can show grace and favor to people if you really work at it. If you're thinking about how to do that, most of your days you'll find that there will be great and mighty things happen. You know, I love what it says in 1 Corinthians 13, verse 1, and you'll know why when I read that first verse. It says, though I speak with the tongues of men and of angels, but have not love, I become a sounding brass and a clanging cymbal. And though I have the gift of prophecy and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and though I have all faith, so that I could remove mountains, but have not love, I am nothing. I am nothing. And though I bestow all my goods to feed the poor, and though I give my body to be burned, but have not love, it profits me nothing. So, what is the value of this love that we're speaking of? It's tremendous. You want to make a change in your life and the life of people around you? Start showing love, because love is something you do. It's not something that happens to you, it's something you do. All marriages should have a measure of love that exceeds their own desires and makes one who wants to fulfill the desires of their mate. We wouldn't have the divorces that we have and we see in everyday news and even around us. We would see people finding themselves more caring. I remember back in the 50s, yeah, I'm that old, in the 1950s, people were so gentle, so kind. You'd be driving and somebody would be pressing to get ahead, and people would actually move over for them. They wouldn't try to block them. If somebody needed to get through an intersection, people worked real hard to try to make it so that they could get through without them honking their horn or flashing their lights or, you know, screaming out the window with their hair on fire. They didn't have to do any of that. People just saw you were in need and wanted to help. And people would drop things. I mean, now these days, I'm not as agile and able to get around as well as I used to. And I find myself most every day now using a cane to get around. And it's amazing that in this little small town we live in the northern part of Texas, that I can be going with my cane trying to get in my truck and people come by and want to help, you know, or I'm going out the door pushing my buggy and They want to help. I mean, I must look pretty bad if I'm having that much attention. But then I'm thinking at the same time, you know, there is a kindness out there. There is a goodness. There is the fruit of the Spirit working around us. And if we wanted to be part of it, all we got to do is start entertaining it. And you'll see it make a difference in your life. Like I said in the beginning, the gifts of the Holy Spirit are great. And the Ascension gift ministries are perfect for us to know about. But these fruits of the Spirit are something I avoided early on. And I really felt like, man, I don't want to spend my time talking about all this stuff. But I've learned it through the exercise of practicing it. Practicing it is where the key is. Because the more you practice it, the more benefits come from it. Because what goes out of you comes back around. If you show contention, you're going to receive contention. If you show good favor toward mankind and woman's too, you will find it come back to you in the same letter, if not more. The same way with judgment. Judge not, lest you be judged. By the same measure you judge, it'll be measured to you greater. Because that's really a tough thing. Why would you want to, be so judgmental anyway? You don't need to be. Look at the good in people. Being optimistic has its own powers, but to do it in love, because love mankind, you love your spouse, you love your children, you want to burn up a lot of that anguish and anger that comes up from you at times when people do things or say things that make you mad. You want to burn that up quick. Just let it burn away in love and replace it with a kind word. You'll be amazed what'll happen. If you've ever had anybody just chew up one side and down the other, I mean, just rag you out with all kinds of nasty words, and you want to help them, you want to do something for them, it just flips their head on fire. I mean, they don't know what to do. They don't know what to do. Proverbs has something to say about that. You're heaping coals upon their soul whenever you do something good, when they're trying to do something bad to you. They don't know what to do with it. In fact, when we get into entertaining, trying to repay somebody for what they've done in anger or issues of dislike, all you're doing is making yourself a victim, because they'll be a lot better at it than you are. But if you do the reverse and do something kind, something good, you will find they're defenseless. And actually, when you do that, when you do something good for somebody and you show love rather than anger, what you're actually doing is you're releasing them from your fury and handing it over to your Father God. When you do that, you're releasing all of their animosity, and it comes off you and goes to Him. For He does not say that they hate you for me. It's not you they hate, it's me that's in you they hate. And that's true about Satan too. Whenever the old devil's coming after you, it's not because of you. It's because of the God in you. So do the reverse. Do the God thing. Do the gifts of the Spirit thing. And you'll find there'll be great recourse given back to you and great favor of God. The favor of God can be found, but it has to be earned. And you earn it by doing the things that are not normally what we want to do. You fight your flesh because the flesh wants to fight all the good things that God has for you, just like it says in 1 Corinthians, also, in Galatians, it talks about it as well, that there's a battle that goes on within us, a battle that goes on, the flesh against the spirit, and the spirit wars against the flesh, and the flesh does all it can to try to tear us down, to push us into the fight, rather than coming back out of it and looking at it through a totally different set of lenses. Look at it through the lenses of God and let Him reveal to you the things you must be known. Because I've had it happen many times where I just wanted to blow up on somebody and pause. I mean, pause is a very powerful gift in itself too. Just pause yourself just long enough to let God intervene. And He began to tell me what's going on in that person's life. and show me what they're dealing with at home with a sick child. And in some cases, they were even dying. And the parent was so distraught, they couldn't deal with life itself, much less with you. And all they needed was a kind word, somebody give them some hope. And when you showed them a totally different side of what they expected you to be, you showed them a good side of yourself rather than the bad. It didn't just calm them. It gave them hope that there's still people who care. Even though my situation is horrible, there's still people who care. Don't even know what my problems are, but obviously they care for me because they just said something that made me feel great, made me feel good, made me feel worthy. And doesn't that what a prophecy does a lot of times? We know the exhortation doesn't, because you lift people up, you build people up. It makes them feel like they have a purpose in life. Therefore, they can go through about anything if they know God's in it with them. And isn't that so for yourself? No matter how things might get, you know that when somebody shows you a kind act of God and does something for you that you didn't expect. And I find it also interesting that the people I know that are wealthy, that have, you know, far more money than you or I, they don't have people ever do anything for them. All the time they're doing stuff for other people, bailing people out of different situations, helping them out financially. And, they don't see anybody do anything for them, but it's amazing what happens when you do something for them. And they might even be monetary. You may just be in a position where you want to give them some money. That now they're going to say, no, I don't need that. But no, don't let them rob you of your blessing. If God's telling you to give them money, give them money. You want to give them something, buy them something. Maybe it's something they don't even need, but it shows you care. And if you do that, you'll find that they're going to look at you from a totally different light. They're so used to giving, they don't know what it's like to be humiliated by being the receiver of someone's gift. And you know how that is, because a lot of times it's hard when somebody comes and does a great financial favor for you and you're thinking, oh my, I didn't earn this. They're doing this for me and it makes myself feel cheap, makes me feel below myself. But it's what they do because they know they can do it. And they want to step in and help. And whenever, like I said, it's better to give than it is to receive because it's humiliating to receive in those circumstances. To give is easy when you can give it. You don't give it to hold anything over the person's head. And that's what's sometimes hard for people to understand. Why would you do this for me? What have I done for you? I've done nothing for you. Doesn't matter. All I want to do is make your life better, make your life hopeful, give you some response that is different than what you've been getting. A response of love rather than a response of hate. Hate in itself, that word's a very powerful word, and it's also used way too much. People use it in conversation, but when you think about it, hate is to hurt. Hate is to crush. Hate is to destroy. And we really don't want to do that when we say that word. We don't know what we're thinking. Because when you say, I hate that person, or I hate this situation, I hate my job, I hate this, try to go without it for a while and see how much it feels then. Will it feel better? You'll find it doesn't feel better. Because to go without a job for a period of time can be very devastating. So be cautious. You might be, showing a little anger and hate toward God for even what you have. Maybe you think you deserve more. Maybe you can earn more by just being more grateful. At least I've found it to work for myself. It was more promising to me to take a job sometimes that nobody else wanted and do it as best I could so that at least I would have work done and maybe somebody would appreciate that I did it. And sure enough, I'd be one of the first ones always to be lifted up, promoted, because I shown that I would do the hard as well as the easy. I would do the least profitable job. Therefore, I'm worthy to receive the more promising job. There's also that place within us that we need to begin to stretch out a little bit, reach out, reach down into ourselves and pull out that good person that is in us. Draw from the well of goodness and love, because in it you'll find residue of it begin to befall upon you, and it will light the path with God's words, making it much easier for you in life if you're helping others get through it as well. I know that there's a lot of people who want to do for others, but they don't know who to do anything for. Well, you got to be in the mix of it. Sometimes it's just a matter of giving them some of your time. People are lonely out there. People need somebody just to give them a time to listen to. Isn't that what most counseling people do who give counsel? Oh, speaking of counsel, I've had a lot of people sign up for prophetic counseling dealing with what's around the corner financially. We see a lot of things coming up in the financial markets that people are getting very concerned. People are hearing things being said even by our top officials in government that our 401ks are in jeopardy, Social Security is in jeopardy, bank accounts are in jeopardy. I mean, it's enough to scare you when you hear it just in regular old propaganda. But when it comes from the mouths of those who are in place of office that has the oversight that they have over that particular function that they are overseeing as Secretary of Defense, Secretary of War, Secretary of the financial arena, of Treasury, all these things that are happening in the market today. I want to be able to help you because the Lord's been showing me along the way for the last few months, probably the last 6 months, showing me what to do about making sure our financial situation's set up to where we're covered whichever way it goes, because it's going to go. And I can give you some time, dates, and frames where you can see about what time's going to hit. A lot of people think, well, how do you know that, brother? Well, let me just give you this. I got thinking about this just the other day. You remember the prophecy I gave, boy, is early 2000s, early in the new millennium, about our youth and what they're going to have to go through, but what they will do for us. I might pull that up and make that available maybe on this next flyer that goes out and let you see how close that fits for what's happening today. Then you go back through a lot of the apostolic decrees we did, and you see some of the things that we were actually coming against and see where that is today in comparison. I would like to be able to have the time to go through and pull out all those particular decrees and prophecies and put them on our homepage on our website. People can just flip them over and see where we're at today in comparison to where we were when they were given. Because there was some heavy stuff there. A lot of people thought, well, that was the end, talking about Trump coming back in office and Trump taking over the FBI and all these things that would happen. And when the election was stolen in 2000, it really made a lot of people think there was a lot of false prophets out there. I never felt that way. I knew God was going to do something. I didn't know how. I didn't know what. But Lord kept saying he'll have a third term. And I thought, third term? Well, if he did actually win the 2000 election, which I can quite readily say, I watched the numbers flip right on the screen of the TV at 3 o'clock in the morning, and how they just flipped his numbers from Biden's, just swapped their numbers, and it made a huge difference. But I'm saying this, that as we see these changes taking place, as we see things happening in the past, if you go back and look, sometimes those prophecies are so long ago you forgot about them. I'd love to have them on the forefront so you can see where we're at today. But if he did win that 2020, and I believe he did, then he also won in this last election in 2024. So if that's the third term, if you want to say it that way, he wasn't actually getting to do the work. But God kept telling me Mar-a-Lago was the new White House. I mean, all the way through 2020 through 2023, Mar-a-Lago was the new White House. And I thought, okay, that's interesting. And I knew that he had people coming in and working with them and getting everything set up for what was going to happen. And boy, hit the town. I mean, they hit the road running. I mean, as soon as they came in office, they started changing things. And, but things are changing so fast now, it's getting a little scary because there's going to be some things changing that will put people in a place of concern. We got AI. AI is a big deal. What's that going to do to us? Well, God showed me some things about that, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Some things about what's going on in our markets, how you can get ahead of things. Are you going to lose your 401k? Well, I can take you back to a time where you will see that in 2008, after the new president came in that election, when we had the Obama come in, people lost a lot because whole investment firms were shut down, and all those investors lost everything they had. Most people have forgotten about that. That even the dealerships for General Motors, 1,600 dealerships went out of business because they were owned by Republicans. Why did that happen? Well, there's a lot of things people forget, but God is faithful to remind those who are interested to know what's around the corner tomorrow. And usually I'll take yesteryear and show you what's there and show you what's today to let you see what's coming. But it's going to be a different thing. It'll be a reverse. The one who was hunted is now the hunter. And we need to be aware. My calling came out of Ezekiel chapter 33. And if you read chapter 33 of Ezekiel, you'll see that my call is a watchman on the wall. When I see the sword of the Lord coming, warn the people. And if I warn them and they do not heed the word, the blood will be on their own hands. But if I warn them and I hear the word and I don't warn them, their blood will be on my hands. And that goes back and forth like that for half the chapter. Then it gets to the end of things. And you see more clearly why I do what I do today. I'm not looking for the glory to be so profound that I'm lifted up on man's pedestals. I'm not interested in that. I don't want to be that. I want to serve God and his people. And I can be low key and I'll be fine with that. I'd rather be low key and not be in the limelight. I'm not for that. I don't want to be diffused or cluttered mind through all the hullabaloo. I would rather be clear-minded and left alone so I can spend time with my God and find out what is coming for all of us. And that's why we do the prophetic counseling. I found people are very interested in it, and I want to make myself available to you too. If you're interested in finding out about that, just email me at prophetsimpson@gmail.com, prophetsimpson@gmail.com, and I will talk to you about it on the basis of whether you want to set up a time or whether you want to know more about it. I can tell you a little bit, but I can't spend a whole lot of time on it, or I might as well just do a counseling session. There is specified things that we can prepare for that will make you feel like you're able to sleep at night and rest well and be of good spirit, because I care about y'all. I care about everyone that is with us and those who aren't yet with us. And I look forward to seeing more people come through the gates and be a part of the tabernacle as soon as possible, because there's going to come a time where things won't be as easy as it is today. And it's getting a little tougher every day to be able to make things work through the internet. And it is, really tough when you're trying to do it in the physical realm of brick and mortar. Those expenses are just out of this world. I mean, more churches are going upside down because they can't afford the brick and mortar anymore. And I hate to see that, but there's coming a time where we're going to find a different way to touch one another through the Spirit of God, we'll be connected. We'll not lose sight of the fact that God's not going to forget us. And that you can bank on. So be it. May y'all be blessed today. Hope you received a lot from today. I pray you have. And really, there is power in the spirit of love. No doubt. No doubt. So be it. God bless you all. To all, good day.